know. Last time you were here, I was mentioning some records to you, and I had a couple of my records that I pulled out here. But
Okay.
you ever heard of band the Smiths? You ever heard of them?
No, nice. Me too. Behind you is a wall of records, and there's a bunch of records over there. I pulled out a few down here, and I had issue with you because you told me 5. You're limiting me to 5. Oh, okay.
It's gonna be 5. This is like a date. One of my favorite albums, The Ruddles.
Very good record, yes.
But then there's an album here which I love because we're both ELO fans. The Move.
Oh, I love that record.
Okay.
So interesting you should say that, my friend, because I was going to whip this out on you, the very first ELO record, which is the transition from The Move into ELO, because this is Roy Wood and Jeff Lynne together, and Bev Bevan.
This is Michael Lockwood. He's about to give you a top 5 countdown of his favorite records. It's very tough. Don't touch that dial. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So right now, we're going to do our top 5 with you, Michael, and see how we got. We got warmed up. That was our sound check, but now we're ready to rock and roll. What the people want to know a little bit about you, and how do we get to know Michael? By his vinyl. Top 5 must-have records that you can't be without, that influenced you and made you the musician you are today.
Okay.
Be careful. Your kids will be watching this.
They will be. I bet they've got a Harry Styles record, but quick, right? Okay, once again, I told you, I have issue with 5. I don't think that that's fair, and it's cruel and unusual punishment to make me tell 5 records. I did think about this for the last week, and I maybe lost a little bit of sleep. Last night, I was rewiring part of the studio, and I thought, I should grab a few records for when we do this. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, okay, so why am I the way that I am now? That's a bad question. Musically would be what I meant. And I started thinking about some records. Now, I'll say this. It's fair enough that 5 records often change every other week. I might say, well, the biggest influence on me was, Black Sabbath Volume 4. Well, that might be true next week, but it isn't true the week after that. So I had to go back to some basics. So this isn't, I will not commit that these are my all-time 5 favorites, but I will say that they've had massive influence on me, whether it was for songwriting, pure enjoyment, guitar playing, production, because I'm a big nut for the way a record is produced and why it sounds the way that it does. And sometimes I would pick a favorite record only because of the way that it's produced. So without further ado, I'm going to bring some records on for you. Okay. So probably one of the biggest influences is McCartney's Ram. McCartney's made, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 records in his solo career. It's been a lot. But for some reason, Ram completely resonates with me on every level. I feel like it's pound for pound the best McCartney solo record that there is. And it went from this first McCartney record, which is really homespun and recorded probably on a 4 or 8 track tape machine in a barn in Scotland somewhere, right? To like a fully produced record that was done in New York with some amazing New York cats. Right?
Hugh McCracken was on it.
Hugh, and I got to have a really nice long talk with Hugh years ago on the phone. I was going through some bizarre finger stuff where this finger wouldn't bend. It just wouldn't. If it did, it hurt like hell. Anyway, I was crying the blues to everybody. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, my friend Hugh's gone through this." So he had Hugh call me, and I talked to Hugh like an hour and a half on the phone. Not once did I bring this up. What an idiot. All we talked about was the weather in New York and my effing finger. That was it. So I'll say that I'm going to officially put this in the top 5 always. It never goes out of the top 5.
You know what? I have that. Too Many People, Great Uncle Albert. I mean, it's a great album. Heart of the Country.
Hello, Heart of the Country. What a beautiful thing.
For a home in the heart of the country.
For a second. Okay. Monkberry Moon Delight. Hello, McCartney's voice. Long-haired lady, beautiful. Smile Away, what a great rocker, right? Okay, so that goes in the top 5 for sure.
100%.
I'll commit. Okay, then it goes without saying that I have to have a Beatles record because Ram doesn't count as a Beatles record. And the first Beatles record I ever got was the soundtrack to Help, the American version. And that completely changed my life. But am I going to talk about that record now? No, not at all. I'm going to talk about the record that gives you more bang for your buck.
Flew in from Miami Beach,
I think my first taste of the Beatles was probably the White Album because I thought about this recently and I wrote it in an interview. Down the street was a friend of mine and he had an older brother. That's the gateway to all kinds of things besides music. And I remember we were in his room and we were doing something and I heard music through the wall and I was like, whoa, what is that? That's amazing. And I opened his brother's door and it turns out he was listening to the White Album. He had the White Album poster up on the back of his door when I walked in. The room reeked of what I now know as marijuana. And there was candles and incense everywhere. It was a perfect sort of thing. And that probably, I'm going to say, was 1969-ish or 1970. So this record had been out a bit, but it was the first time that I ever heard it. And it was, for me, it had all the elements that I still love. And it's probably because of this record. It's the mystery. It's the darkness and the light all in one record. You have like bouncy McCartney tunes, right? And you have these really gritty Harrison songs and Satire of Piggies, and the Lennon stuff on this record is out of control. All the experimental stuff, all the backwards stuff. First version of Revolution, right? The acoustic thing.
So cool.
So for me, this record, if I have to pick a Beatles record as one, it's the White Album. And I know that some people might feel that there's some filler in there, but they can jump in a cold lake. I'm sorry. There's just no way. Every song is amazing in a different way. And the production is really cool. It's very altered from Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour. Really sort of direct and dry, and it's just really super.
It's a heavy album and it never gets old. I mean, you have a little bit of everything. It's a journey. It was what they were going through. The songs were written in India, a lot of them, after the loss of Brian Epstein passed away.
That's
now
right.
we get, you know, it's really a journey. You get you.
Isn't it? You think about the journey the Beatles were on. You put yourself in their shoes if you can. They make a groundbreaking record like Sgt. Pepper, which is unlike anything they'd ever done. Their direction just spun around the other way, right? And then they do Magical Mystery Tour, which I'm wondering how that was really perceived after Sgt. Pepper. And then they make this record. So for me, this is also a memory marker. You know, it's a big change in my life. I went from being like a kid playing hide and seek outside and riding skateboards to I need a guitar. I need to start learning songs. I mean, within, I don't know, it must have been weeks before I had an acoustic guitar, and I was taking lessons, and I was learning All Things Must Pass. No, My Sweet Lord. It was one of the first songs I ever learned on guitar. And this is the gateway stuff. This is who I am. And these records are the ones that I'm showing you are why I'm as up as I am, is because of these records. What else do I have on my list? Okay. If I'm going to go down the path that I'm going, I don't want to throw any curveballs in and like whip out a Duran Duran record right now. So I want to keep going where I'm going. So I have to bring this up. The first Big Star record. When this record came out, sadly, I don't know, but maybe a handful of people that understood it. And through the test of time, this album has really risen, which I think now it's 50 years old. I think I saw that the guy, Jody's out doing a tribute right now. They just played in LA.
Yes.
This record. But, this record, I discovered it in probably 84, maybe a hair earlier, because people kept referencing that Lions and Ghosts. There was something about them that rang true of Big Star. And I went, okay, well, I have to figure this out because I didn't really understand that comparison. So, after a day or two of shopping in the record stores, I found a used original copy, and I knew it was hard to find. And I came home and I listened to it, and I've never stopped listening to it. And it had a huge impact on me then, and even a bigger impact later when I think we talked about it on your show. I talked about a period where I was playing downstairs at the Coconut Teaser, and I'd stand in the middle of the room and I'd just play acoustic guitar and sing. And I wrote a handful of songs to do that, but I also learned a lot of covers. And I learned off of this record, I learned the Ballad of El Goodo.
I've been trying hard against rock and roll is here to stay.
I used to play those songs all the time, and they're ingrained in my brain. And I realized the other day I was watching a live TV show that I did with Susanna Hoffs.
Give me a hand, darling.
And it was in Japan, and I think it was Eternal Flame. And I'm listening to it, and I realized the picking pattern is from Big Star. That's where I've learned to do that. And all the chord changes with the notes that follow or lead into the next things are all based on what I learned from listening to this record over and over. So this is really seeped into my psyche. And it's funny now, this became so big because, of that 70s show. The theme song is from this. And if you start talking to musicians, you start realizing the impact that this record had on them. I don't want to say the general public, but you know what I mean by non-musician folks. I don't know if it's permeated that as much as it has musicians, because you and I talk to a million musicians all the time. And this record's got to be on their list. Okay. So do you know this record?
No.
Okay, good. So this is the Finn brothers. It's the brothers that are from Crowded House.
Hey now, don't dream.
This was their first solo record. Record, I couldn't stop listening to it or stop playing it. And I still always go back and reference it. The production is phenomenal. It is one of those records that is brimming with all kinds of wonderful lo-fi ideas. So these beautiful melodies played against acoustic guitars and harmony vocals. But I know because of the people that they worked with on this record, it was one of those records where it's like, okay, let's play the piano and then let's put a cardboard tube near the top of it and we'll record through the cardboard tube. I think they had a field day in the studio and they went way outside the box. And it was that era too of the way some records were made. And this record has such an amazing character to it. The songwriting is unbelievable. If you think about the hits that were written by them for Split Ends. I Got You, History Never Repeats, So Many Months in a Leaky Boat. Sorry, spaced out. But great songwriters. And then Crowded House clearly had all kinds of hits. Really do yourself a favor because, okay, so it opens with a song called Only Talkin' Sense.
There's a wild thing in the woodshed.
Which it's lyrically brilliant. The melodies are so great that the harmonies, these two guys, because they're brothers, so they just have this ability just to melt together their voices. There's so much good on here. There's some great softer stuff, and there's some great rockin', really like get up and move kind of songs. So that's a record that I often come back to. It could be in my top 5, and then like 3 years later, I'm like, oh, I need to hear that. And I've listened to it. I listened to it last night. I listened to it the other day, and I was listening to it on a walk recently. I can't speak any more highly of the production of the record. It's so fun and different. So
There's a mirror lake before me, but I'm frozen when it's time to.
So I pulled this out earlier to talk to you about. This is the first ELO record. It's called No Answer. And this was the transition from a band called The Move. So in the 60s, Jeff Lynne had a band called The Idle Race. And he then joined a band called The Move. And Roy Wood was one of, I know, I'm with you on that one, ELO. They started a band called The Move. And I think, what did they make? Well, The Move also had different eras, shorter, and a different sound, when they did Blackberry Way, which was a big hit in England for them. Looking On, those were the two that are really the beginnings of ELO. And then right after Message from the Country, which was 71, they made this record. And I'm not sure if there's a song on here that most people would remember or recognize. And, this is an original copy. Okay, so, I think there's a song called 10:53:8 Overture. It's the one that starts the record. And that one is probably the only one that's on probably in ELO's greatest hits. It's more earthy. It sounds a lot like The Move because, it's Bev Bevan on drums, who was in The Move with them, and Jeff and Roy. And they just changed the name and they made this record. It's heavily string influenced, no duh. And really set the stage for what ELO was to become. I mean, they morphed into a massive, massive band. This is the only record that Roy Wood's on. He left after this record. And this record probably wasn't that big in the States either, to be honest. It probably wasn't until the second ELO record, because that had Roll Over Beethoven.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that was a massive hit. I am crazy for Jeff Lynne Productions. I love them. I know some people do not, but I have a big fondness in my heart for the way his records sound and how meticulous he is. And the guy still writes amazing songs. He's not stopping. He's made 2 new ELO records, right? I think it's under the name Jeff Lynne's ELO.
Yeah.
And all those songs, when I downloaded or bought the vinyl, whatever it was, for both of those and put it on, I was not disappointed at all. Production amazing, songs great, melodies good, parts great, string arrangements fantastic. And there's not a bad ELO record to me. I know there's some 80s stuff that people might be confused about, but you have to go back and listen to it now because it's still pound for pound. Great songs on every single record.
Sun is shining in the sky.
Incredible. Now, this record right here, which is funny because Mr. Radio was supposed to be a single, second single for that album, but then
Didn't know that. Good call.
Queen of the Hours, which later became the B-side for Roll Over Beethoven. Let's take from that album, we'll put it here.
I bet you this record and the second ELO record are pretty close together, because if this is 72, think about by 77, they were already on Out of the Blue. That's like 5 or 6 records later.
That's right. Which was a double album.
Yeah, they were turning out records. One of my all-time favorite ELO records is the record before Out of the Blue, which has Telephone Line on it.
Oh my God, just listen to that today.
Okay, so that was my ringtone for 10 years. I mean, I will put, I'll just take the whole entire ELO collection and I'll put that in my top 5.
She's like 5 more. We'll do another 5 more. I want to thank everybody for watching this top 5. Thank you guys, the Patreon people, and this will be on YouTube. I'll do some nice edits because I'll make the albums look big and all that, and make it magical. And
Awesome.
Everybody, it's always great to see you. Make sure you subscribe. Check out links from Michael. They'll be down below in the comments, in the description. So make sure you click on that and check out. Wait, let's talk about some plugs here.
So we have we've re-released the Lions and Ghosts first record, and that's digital only, but we've included 2 B-sides and 4 dance tracks that were recorded, remixed in the 80s from that time period. We released 3 singles from Bird Streets, and we just released the Bird Streets sophomore album this last Friday. It's called Lagoon, and you can download that or stream it anywhere. It will also be available on double vinyl, marbled and black, running at 45 RPM for you audiophile nuts. And then I released a soundtrack 2 days before Halloween, and that is from a movie, As the Village Sleeps, and that is all instrumental, all electronic, in the vein of John Carpenter and Tangerine Dream and all those fun 70s, early 80s people. And that just came out. And we have some other great stuff coming out. We have some new artists coming up for next year. And perhaps a little more Lions and Ghost stuff we might eke out too.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Well, links are down below. Click on it, and they're in there right now waiting for those links. Until then, everybody, we love you. And remember, it's only rock and roll. We like it. And remember, who loves you, baby? We do. Now get out of here, you crazy kids.